on vision communities at Zensar. It's one of the best written cases that I have seen. Of course, the TAPMI cases are better, but this is one of the better Harvard Business School. One of the better Harvard Business School cases. And again, I mean, today we are 7,000 people. Okay, sure, we're not TCS. We don't want to be TCS. Okay, but we're a successful company, happy people. Our attrition, what we call critical talent attrition, is less than 1%. Can you believe it? In an industry where attrition runs 18, 19%. Even if you take our BPO guys, etc., our attrition never crosses 8, 9%. And critical talent is the top 600 people. So basically what I'm saying is that it's just, and we were discussing this over lunch, that ultimately when you talk about a career, you should be able to look back at 30 years of your career and ask 3 questions. Was there excitement? And if you say no, there's something wrong there. Was there happiness? Am I happy today? Or am I keeping on thinking, oh my God, my friend, he went and joined this company in Dubai, he's made so much money, I'm not making so much money. Come on, guys. Surely you have done something which the other guy has not done. And third is, did I do enough? Did I add value? This is not a question that young people ask at all. I mean, it is always ask what the company can do for me and not what I can do for the company. But believe me, when you're as old as I am, if you look back and say, look, I've changed the lives of 10 people. I've actually made a couple of entities. It doesn't need to be an organization. It could be an academic institution. It could be a business unit successful. Then I think you'll be successful. Anybody disagree? Anybody has a point of view? Ask me questions. Tell me. Come on. I'm told that TAPMI has the brightest MBAs on the planet. Tell me. I'm just giving you tips on how to think about a career. I have a film producer friend whom I told this story to, and he immediately came up with this poem for me. So I said, what is this poem? He says, look, the economy, things are changing so fast, etc., etc. So I said, yeah, that's true. And imagine if I were an MBA, I'd be really petrified. What happens if the US tapering starts early? What happens if Indian economy doesn't? All that wonderful stuff. So he said, you should tell students, anytime you meet a student, he says, the winds will keep changing. So I will use my terrible Hindi to tell you what he said. He said, you tell the wind, "Eh hawa, tu bhale hi apna rukh badal le," which means you change your direction. Maine to apni disha chun li hai. Interesting, isn't it? So all the vicissitudes of fortune and economic problems, etc., if you're clear and not clear, I mean, don't make a 20-year plan. You're in for disaster. If you're clear about what kind of career success you want, irrespective of industry, irrespective of company, irrespective of what you are, you can be successful. So that's the basic thing. Now let me see what is the best use of the next 20 minutes. Let me actually take you through my presentation, okay? And I won't take you through all the slides, but we'll cover a few slides. And I want to set a bit of a context on a way to think about the global economy and the Indian economy. So if I ask you about one great thing that's happening in the global economy, anybody? Something you feel happy about? Raise your hand so that we don't get 2 people. Anybody want to say what is good about the global economy on December 19th, 2013? That makes you feel optimistic. Come on, guys. You want me to cold call you, saying you? Tell me one good thing about the global economy at this point of time. No, it's all negative. Tell me one bad thing about the global economy that makes you feel so negative. Yeah, go ahead. Why do you always start with the negative? What is past mistake? What is the past mistake they made? Okay, the great subprime crisis. Okay. So because of that, you're saying the banks are a little more conservative, they're being careful. And okay, that's one. Anybody else? Why is there positivism in the Dow Jones? Why is there positivism in the stock markets, etc., etc.? No. So what else happened to screw up the world economy so badly, apart from the banking crisis? What do you think happened? What's wrong with America? Anybody? Apart from the arrest of Ms. Debjani, whatever. We won't go there. But what else do you think went wrong with America in the last 3-4 years? Yeah, America is still the leader of the capitalist world, though China doesn't believe it. What do you think went wrong with America in the last 3-4 years? What is the problem with the way Americans, I almost used the word, not mindset. Mindset is a management jargon. What is wrong with the way Americans live their lives? Absolutely. She's got it absolutely right. What's your name? Nikita is absolutely right. The biggest problem, which is, by the way, beginning to happen with all young MBAs today, is that you spend more than you have. Common sense. Is it a management lecture or what? Okay, but that's a fact. So the entire problem of America, including the subprime mortgage crisis and everything else, is because you take the same instrument and try and turn it around 7 times to give you the optical illusion that you have more money than you have. If you look at the bond buying program, all of you would have read that, now they're saying instead of buying 85 billion a month, we'll do 75 billion. But it still means that the American government is spending money on their own paper, and that own paper is worthless. So imagine how much artificial money you're creating in the system. And the whole credit card regime, where every American kid has 7 credit cards, and all of it is being spent, and someday they're saying the education loan crisis and the credit card crisis is going to be 10 times bigger in America than the subprime mortgage crisis. Turn to India. India, we have come through times, and that is actually the subject of my latest book, where our aspirations were a little limited. Okay, we wanted to be happy. We wanted to be successful. Successive generations wanted their children to do better than they had done, which is all good stuff. And I still remember when I was in Nasik, the first time we thought of buying a transportation was when we had saved 4,000 rupees. Okay. No, I'm very old, so don't worry about it. Okay. And what do you get for 4,000 rupees? Even in the late 80s, you couldn't get anything for 4,000 rupees. So then we started looking at all the ads, and then we found somebody had advertised that I'm willing to send my second-hand 10-year-old Lambretta scooter for 3,800. So my wife and I immediately next day caught a bus and went to this guy, and I still remember Sardarji standing in a garage, and he said, you can take this. I said, but he said, I have one condition. I said, kya hai bhai? So he has an old grey Lambretta, where there's this brilliant red that's painted Monty on top of it. So he says, you can't rub out the Monty. Why? He said, Monty mera puttar da naam hai. So if you rub it out, it will be disastrous for our family. So for next 2 years, I was riding the Monty Lambretta. So, but aspiration, and I still remember my wife and I talking one day, and my wife was saying, look, by the time we retire, and she's also an MBA from FMS, so it's not like she's an illiterate Rabadi Devi or something like that. Okay? And she said, by the time we retire, you and I should be sitting in a Fiat car, and you should be driving, and I should be sitting next to you. This was the extent of our ambition, for heaven's sake. You think I'm now? Professor Natarajan invited the wrong guy. He has no bloody aspirations. So because of that, you never overspent. And the Indian success stories of middle-class Indians, take Narayan Murthy, take anybody you feel like, take Ratan Tata for that matter, are because of spending less than we earn. And the ability to invest wisely and so on and so forth. Today it's changing completely. So the one word of advice I give you, be careful on how much spending you do early on in life. All the MBAs we recruit today from ISB, IIMs, within 2 years, they're driving a Honda Accord, they have one house already, they've already put a deposit for the next house. And I keep telling them, you're just getting married, why do you need 2 houses for heaven's sake? It's like, no, it's available, so it has to be bought. Take the bank loan, take whatever. You're almost following the overspending model of the US, and you have to be careful. Because the minute you have these economic ups and downs, and suppose you get laid off one day, okay, you'll get a job, of course, but still, it's better not to be overspent. So let me take you through 3 slides on the economy, and then we'll talk. This is really what we have seen in the global economy, which I think all of you know. It's growing now. Okay, America is happy that they're growing nearly 2%, which is better than not growing at all. UK, which was a complete basket case, is started to grow a little bit. Europe is actually doing well. In fact, I'm just coming back from 6 countries in Europe, and all of them are very positive. Unlike India, which has a big problem of inflation, there is a very low inflation in the global economies. And potential GDP growth rates, where every year they say the next year, 2014, global GDP will grow 2.5%. It keeps coming down. So that's a bit of a concern. So this is really what the global economy is. India, I don't even need to get into that. The problem is more shooting ourselves in the foot. Okay, obviously, certain programs of the second government of the UPA have been overspending, which is why you had this huge problems of current account deficit, fiscal deficit, so on and so forth. Bad monetary policies, we won't get into that. And of course, we have stagnation and high inflation. So stagflation can actually kill the economy for the next 10 years. So while I am very hopeful, especially since many of you are taking up jobs, that 2014 will see a substantial improvement in the Indian economy. And it will grow hopefully 5% next year and 10% the year after. But don't bank on it. Choose wisely. Okay, if you want to be an entrepreneur, make sure you're choosing a segment that is in the right place. If you want to join a company, if it's a big multinational, make sure that you are in the kind of core aspect of what they do. I think those are important because nobody can really call where the Indian economy is going to go in the next 2 years. Certainly there is hope that the global economy will do better. This is the outlook on the economy, as many of you would have seen. So if you look at Morgan Stanley, they're talking about 5.1% growth next year. I mean, India needs 9% growth for the next 10 years for 300 million poor people to come out of poverty. All this 4.7, 5.1 will get us nowhere. All it will do, which is happening in the US, is to keep existing people in jobs. It will not create the kind of employment that is happening today. Do you know that there are 1.3 million engineers graduating next year? And how many jobs do you think there will be created next year for engineers? Any guesses?
4 lakhs?
No, no way. It will be less than 2 lakhs. So imagine that gap. MBAs, I won't even talk. I mean, if you take the top 20 aside, outside this, I mean, there are close to 950 MBA schools producing, if I may say so, completely worthless MBAs who don't get jobs. But you could argue that at least they're studying rather than becoming Maoists or something like that. But that's a big social issue we're going to face. Okay? So that is something that we need to be concerned about. So this is really where it is. But so if you look at the last line, which you can't read, I'll tell you. It says most broking houses are saying that, look, the trajectory of growth will go up in India, but it will happen at a very slow pace. So this is the context in which we are. I won't get into the IT industry because we don't have time. But let me talk a little bit about organizations and then talk about your own careers and how you can look at building it a little further. Organizations today, most of us realize that there are no shortcuts. I've been running publicly listed companies for the last 20 years. Aptech listed in 1992. And we all suffer from what is called the QSQT syndrome, which is quarter se quarter tak. Okay, there is this perception always. There's always this perception that you're only as good as your last quarter. Actually, it's completely untrue. Okay, and in the same spirit of what I talked about, openness with franchisees, openness with employees, you can be very open with stock market analysts as well. I mean, for instance, we bought a company in America 3 years ago, which was supposed to be turned around. The model was supposed to become India-centric, and we said we'll do it in 1.5 years. It didn't happen. 3 quarters back, I went up to the stock exchanges, talked to the analysts, and said, look, guys, we have screwed up. Okay, what we thought would turn around in 6 quarters is likely to take 9 quarters. Did they all go and run and sell Zensar stock? Absolutely not. The stock price went up the next day. So it's counterintuitive, but all they are saying is, don't bullshit us. Okay, if you have a problem, tell us what the problem is and tell us what the future is going to be and what you're going to do to remedy the problem. Then we'll measure you against the recovery process. So in 3 successive, I would say lukewarm quarters after that, our stock price went up from what was then 195 to 240 to 280 to today it's whatever, 320, 315. People are still saying that, look, we believe the story. We know that these guys know what is some of the mistakes we have, and they have a good lot of good things going for them. So I'm saying, today organizations are all about balancing the short term and the long term. And the short term parameters, which are very obvious, and I won't get into some of this data, but I'll leave this presentation behind, any of you will order. This is the point I'm talking about. See, if you look at those 2 charts there, the short term is what an enterprise delivers to stakeholders. Clearly financial terms, clearly operational. In our industry, it's utilization, pyramid, and so many other things that we measure. And we are always benchmarked against a TCS or a Cognizant or a Capgemini. You got to deliver that as well. So that's the short term. But in the longer term, and this is what CEOs like me are supposed to focus on, that what is our own picture of the organization in 2017, and how are we building the health of the organization, what qualities, what attributes, what actions that will sustain the performance into the next 5 years, and not just have 3 great quarters and then say that, look, there's nothing more we're doing. So that's really the kind of balancing act that all of us do. Just more detail of that. And that it's a very nice quote from Jack Welch, which I love. He says, the narrow pursuit of shareholder value is the dumbest idea in the world. But Jack Welch is Jack Welch. So till you become Jack Welch, don't say things like this to the stock market. Okay. And and if you know Jack Welch in his final years, apart from having an unnecessary affair, in my opinion, but he actually spent the maximum portion of his last 3 years in Crotonville, which is the training center of GE. So capacity building was his theme completely. And I still remember I was in this PAN-IIT conference in Washington, DC, and Jack was the keynote speaker. And he made all this stuff about what I just told you. People, happiness, training, longitudinal, all of these. And one little guy who had just graduated from IIT Bombay the year before said, look, but Jack, why do people call you Neutron Jack? Do you know why they call him Neutron Jack? Anybody? Anybody knows why Jack Welch was called Neutron Jack?
As soon as he used to become head of position, he used to fire.
Correct. So, I mean, it's like a neutron bomb, you know. Guy doesn't perform, fire him. So Jack got this reputation of firing people. And this is a tough one to answer, right? I mean, because nobody likes to say that I'm very good at firing people. I'm very good at firing people, by the way, because I genuinely believe that people who cannot subscribe to the theme don't deserve to exist. But Jack said, imagine that you have a team of 6 people and you give them a round boat, okay, to paddle across the river. And everybody's got one paddle. Suddenly, halfway down the river, one guy stops paddling. What do you think will happen to the boat? What? It goes around in circles. So he says, don't think that if 1/6 of your team doesn't perform, your boat will go forward at 5/6 of the speed. It will not go forward, it will turn around in circles. Very interesting answer. So that is what Jack Welch means when he says building long-term capability. Because that is the second point which you're saying, that look, the ability of an organization to align, execute, renew, exceptional performance over a period of time. And the first part of this presentation talks about the fact that all those In Search of Excellence and all those wonderful books, most of the companies they talked about as excellent firms don't exist today. Okay, maybe 15% exist. And it's really very few companies that sustain performance over the long term. TCS is a classic example of a company which has really now come up over the last 30 years to do exceptional performance over a prolonged period of time across 3 CEOs, Mr. Kohli, Mr. Ramdurai, and now my friend Chandra. So that is exceptional companies, and that is really the kind of companies that any one of us in this room should want to be part of. So what it means is, and I'll just take a few examples and then come to my last part. This is what organizations look for, which is what I just talked about, alignment. That if you have 20 people, 200 people, 2,000 people, 20,000 people, how do you ensure they're aligned to the common cause, which is what, of course, the jargon is vision. Is there a shared vision across the large parts of the organization? The second is execution. I mean, my favorite management guru is a guy called Joel Barker. If you see one video in your life, see a video called The Power of Vision. It's a fantastic video. And in The Power of Vision, Joel says that, look, vision without action is just a dream, like all our politicians do. Action without vision just passes the time. And vision with action can change the world. And when you say change the world, changing your context, changing the organization, changing the country, I think it's all about vision with action. So that is the execution part of action. And the third is what we'll talk about at the end, which is renewal. What we do in Zensar, and I won't get into details, I already said vision community. So if you look at vision community, it is basically the youngest people in the organization who are empowered and said, look, you come up with great ideas for new products and services, for new processes, for new ideas. As executive council, which is the top 20 people of Zensar, we mentor them. We get our strategy group to validate young people's ideas. But young MBAs really enjoy Zensar, because last year, for instance, the head of strategy for Zensar was a young MBA who joined us from ISB 1 year back. IIT Kharagpur gold medalist, 2 years experience, ISB, and she's heading strategy. Today, my co-author and chief marketing officer is a 30-year-old girl called Lavanya Jairam. Lavanya is not even an MBA. She's a mass comm graduate. But I mean, exceptional performance and exceptional contribution in visioning. So for us, meritocracy is nothing to do with age, gender, nationality, culture, nothing. It's what you deliver on the job. Okay, and that is really what vision community does for us. Just to give you a sense of what we do in alignment, I mean, this contributes to 30% of new ideas, strategy, and most important for people like me, because there's no way I can know 7,000 people directly, but by the process of their contributing to vision, you immediately recognize who are the high flyers in the organization. And for the high flyer in a company like Zensar, the sky is the limit. I mean, we just don't have any glass ceilings to which they can go. That's why, I mean, we have, what, 60% of our managers today are young women, okay, and most of them are doing brilliantly. So in fact, we had a Women for Excellence group in Zensar for 10 years. Now the men are saying, can we please have a Men for Excellence, because we need mentoring. No, seriously, seriously. And that's the joy of letting people perform to their potential. The aligned execution point, I won't get into this. I mean, this is something that we decided, and this is, I mean, this is a cliche actually, but if you look at any organization, the belief that all of us egoistic CEOs have is the CEO is a visionary, knows exactly what needs to be done in this world. The management team better be visionary, otherwise they shouldn't be there. The young people, people like you who join companies, are full of bright ideas. You've been trained by the best faculty members in TAPMI. So you need air to breathe and make things happen. The guy who will come into your way is your boss. So our strong belief, and which is true by across the organization, that middle managers who have been there 10, 15 years tend to become the blockers in an organization. So what we do in Zensar is we just pump it into them. Middle managers, I mean, we have 3 attributes called connectedness, feedback, and development. And every middle manager goes through a once in 6 months workshop on testing how connected he is. So they'll actually make presentations on saying, I took my entire team for a party and all that stuff. So sometimes it sounds funny. But we're forcing people to say, guys, you will succeed if your team succeeds. And this is probably one of the most successful parts of what we have done, which is, sorry, I don't have that slide, which is what we call iZen, which is discovering the I in Zensar. And that is something that, again, something we're doing. Let's move to the last point. What do we tell MBAs when they join the company? And I'll just tell you, because you're a large group joining different companies. This is what we mean by careers of the future.